the world's weather is getting wilder.
You know, the Earth is a very violent place. There are all kinds of natural processes happening all the time.
From terrifying tornadoes.
All I could see is this green wall. You couldn't see past it, around it, above it.
Wait, those people gotta get out of here.
To horrifying hurricanes.
It just grew into this giant Category 5 monstrosity.
And record-breaking waves.
And it was just like, bang! This shock all the way up my back. And then I had the washing machine effect.
To fast-moving walls of ice.
It's like a big snowball coming at you.
As the world warms up, we reveal gripping footage.
Oh my God, Starbucks just got blown over.
And first-hand accounts from people who were in the heart of these new extremes of weather.
The flash flood's right there!
As you're in the middle of this perfect storm of mud, you really have to focus on surviving.
We had passed the point of no return.
Call 911!
So shelter from the storm and hunker down for the world's wildest weather. Coming up, an Indiana school faces disaster.
I said people are gonna die today.
Living through a 100-meter high Haboob.
The most frightening moment of the day was driving through the sandstorm. I didn't feel safe at all.
But first, one of the costliest hurricanes of all time.
You should be preparing to leave your house.
Nature's a beast. It'll come at you any way and every way it can.
It was mind-blowing. It was unbelievable.
Texas, the United States of America. August 2017, and an impending hurricane is tracking through the Gulf of Mexico towards the Texan coast. Residents are on high alert. The hurricane, named Harvey, makes its first landfall near the city of Rockport in the early hours of Saturday, the 26th of August. A Category 4 hurricane with winds of 130 miles per hour and a 300-mile diameter, it cripples the city's infrastructure and causes catastrophic damage. But it's not just wind damage meteorologists are concerned about. They're warning of unprecedented and devastating flooding across the state.
When Harvey made landfall, it stayed along the coast, and it was able to continue to draw warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico into its circulation, maintaining its intensity and continuing to drop a lot of rain.
180 miles away from Rockport, in the city of Houston, local resident and cameraman Michael Melendez is monitoring the effects of the storm.
It's pretty worrying when the rain hits hard and the thunder rolls in, but living here for a while, that's kind of the norm, so you don't get too scared of it right off the bat.
A few miles away, to the north of the city, Michael's mum Debbie is also keeping her eye on proceedings.
The sky was overcast. I remember it got dark. It wasn't any rain out of the ordinary, but what was different with this is that it didn't stop and it intensified.
By the early evening of Saturday the 26th of August, Hurricane Harvey is downgraded to a tropical storm.
I had that feeling of, ha ha ha, I got one over on Mother Nature. You can't take me down. Is that all you got? That's what I was thinking. So I jumped in my car and went downtown to start taking photos of the city underwater because it was a pretty epic moment.
However, Houston hasn't seen the back of Harvey just yet. The absence of the jet stream, high-altitude winds that impact the surface atmosphere, is causing the storm to linger over the area.
The jet stream that would normally pick up the hurricane and take it towards the northeast was much further north than was typical. As a result, Harvey slowed down, became nearly stationary, and that was one of the reasons why rain was focused on the Texas coast.
I've never seen so much rain. It just got harder and harder, and it just rained buckets.
It started getting worrisome as you watched the water rise and as you saw your city flooding.
Houston has largely escaped the damage from the hurricane-force winds. But can it survive the deluge Harvey is about to send its way? Indiana, the United States of America. Home to nearly 2,000 people, the little town of Henryville lies to the south of Indiana, near the Kentucky state border. This part of the world gets many tornadoes, but not usually on the scale seen further to the west in states like Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. But in March 2012, this is to change when unusual and deadly weather patterns are spotted by the National Weather Service. Fearing strong tornadoes are heading for the area, it begins emergency telephone conferences with schools in the firing line, including a school complex in Henryville.
We started to get some pretty disturbing information from the National Weather Service that morning around 10 o'clock. It became more and more alarming as it reached into the afternoon. And it was about 2 o'clock that we really knew we had to make a decision. If we were going to evacuate, we had 35, 40 minutes. I had a knot in my stomach. I really was kind of a nervous wreck, but I knew I had to be calm, stay calm.
This freak weather event is being caused by a mixture of meteorological conditions.
It was already much warmer than it normally is for that time of year. We got up into the 70s, some 20 degrees above normal for early March. When you combine that with the upper level winds, which were very intense that day, over 130 miles an hour, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Tornadoes are fueled by warm, moist air from the ground, and as more is dragged up by high winds at the top of the weather system, the intensity of the storm will grow.
The storms that were being produced were of the type that you typically see in Oklahoma and Nebraska. Very large supercells, very tall, and all of them were producing severe weather of one type or another. When I went out to get the newspaper that morning, my neighbor asked how things were going. I said, "This is not going to be a good day." I said, "People are going to die around here today."
The weight of the National Weather Service's warnings hits home hard, and as 2 o'clock strikes, the teachers at Henryville's schools make their decision.
We began to notify parents that we were going to be sending kids home.
The decision was made that we were going to go ahead and start loading the buses and get the kids out, and I remember walking the kids out. And then I remember the buses pulling out and the sirens immediately hitting.
Oh my gosh!
At 2:50 p.m., in nearby Fredericksburg, a major tornado forms from a supercell thunderstorm.
We knew that this was not a run-of-the-mill small tornado that typically happens in this area. This was a monster-type situation with devastating capabilities.
We saw actually the tornadoes form. We saw 2 tornadoes form in the distance, and we knew then that they were headed towards Henryville.
Oh my God, look at that.
As the tornado begins to snake its way towards the little town, will the people left in the school be in its path, or will they have a lucky escape?
Oh my God! Look at it!
In winter 2018, the cold spell, nicknamed the Beast from the East, landed on the shores of the British Isles. Britain's usually mild winter weather was replaced by temperatures of less than -10 degrees Celsius, wind speeds reaching 90 miles an hour, and more than 50 centimeters of snow. Claire Nazir of the British Meteorological Office was monitoring the weather.
Normally, the UK in the winter gets most of its weather from the Atlantic, and the air is milder. In the case of 2018, we had a more dominant effect of the easterlies, which came in from Siberia and Scandinavia and the poles. So the cold air won that battle, pushed right across the UK, bringing with it freezing air with snow. It was treacherous outside, and the best thing anyone could do was stay inside, but not everyone did.
Scotland, February 2018. For wedding photographer Jennifer Riddle, staying in isn't an option. She lives in Stonehaven in the northeast of Scotland, and this weekend has been booked to take photos at a wedding around 500 miles away in Swansea, Wales.
Obviously, it was don't travel if you don't have to. But I kind of weighed it up with my partner, and we made the decision to travel a day earlier. To even think about missing a bride's wedding day absolutely breaks my heart.
As Jennifer sets off on her long journey, 100 miles south, the beast from the east has already struck, and Sergeant David Marr is beginning his shift.
When I got into work, the building was empty. Everybody was out on the M80, which is a motorway that runs between Stirling and Glasgow. An area around about what we call the Castle Kerry Arch was under a lot of snow, and vehicles were already stuck.
The heavy snow on this uphill section of the motorway has caused cars to become stuck and lorries to jackknife and block the roads. In an effort to aid the officers on the early shift, David and his team head out to help, but it's slow going.
Driving conditions were terrible, they were appalling. It was heavy snow, and it was going between falling vertically to horizontally. And it was a freezing cold wind. There was no sunshine whatsoever, it was just snow clouds above us.
In the towns around the M80, many people decide to stay inside, but local resident Niall Hewitt is curious to see what's happening and is keen to explore.
I went out with my son. We wanted to see what it looked like. When we got to the bridge, we could see how serious it was. Roads were blocked, nobody could go anywhere, and it was just pandemonium. That lorry's jackknifed, I think. I thought, I have to record this because it's not every day you see a blizzard like this.
This unusual weather is caused by disturbances to something called the stratospheric polar vortex, a low-pressure weather system that sits over the Arctic. It creates strong winds, and these tend to keep in the cold air.
The polar vortex, which keeps all this really cold air in, started distorting and wobbling. And we knew that was going to have an effect, and indeed it did.
This meant that cold air from the north moved down and blocked off the usual warmer air from the southwest.
Because the westerlies weren't winning, we were getting a real dose of northeasterlies, easterlies or northerlies, bringing in that frigid air, not only from the poles, but also from Siberia.
This brought with it very unusual amounts of snow as a result of something known as the lake effect. Cold air from the north moves over the relatively warm seas around Britain and picks up the moisture from the sea. Warmth and moisture are transferred into the atmosphere. The air then rises when it hits land.
That's where the moisture starts to condense in the form of ice crystals and snow forms. And this is what happened during the beast from the east.
Across Britain, the beast from the east causes chaos. As schools are forced to close, hospitals are put on high alert, and the country's transport systems are disrupted. One of the places most badly hit is Scotland, where Jennifer's journey to Wales is taking longer than anticipated.
Just as we got past the Stirling services, the traffic was at a complete standstill. We were like, okay, something's obviously going on here. So we just thought, we're just going to have to sit and wait it out. We literally couldn't turn back. We had passed the point of no return. We were stuck and we had nowhere to go.
As darkness descends and temperatures plummet, Jennifer is stranded and has no idea what the night will bring. August 2017. And Hurricane Harvey has decimated much of the coast of Texas. Although Houston has largely escaped the wind damage, the city is struggling to cope with the torrential rain that the lingering storm is continuing to dump.
One of the crucial things about the flooding in Houston was the fact of the large urban development. The concrete everywhere gave the rain no place to infiltrate into the ground. As a result, it just kept flooding the urban areas.
Cameraman Michael Melendez has been documenting his experiences of the storm.
The hurricane itself wasn't so much the scary part. It was all that water, trillions of gallons of water everywhere.
Harvey has dropped over 60 inches of rainfall on southeastern Texas over 4 days, causing Houston an unprecedented problem. The city's reservoirs, which are built to prevent flooding downtown, are about to burst.
The water in the reservoir had reached its capacity, and there were already cracks that were forming in the reservoir. And they knew that there was a possibility that the reservoirs could break, and that would be disastrous for the city.
To stop this from happening, the city orders a controlled release of the reservoirs, warning residents in the surrounding areas to evacuate. They are worried about additional flooding on roads that has the potential to spill into people's homes.
My neighborhood was in that zone, and the mayor told us all that you were on a mandatory evacuation.
You should be preparing to leave your house at this time.
Anytime someone tells you you're on a mandatory evacuation, your ears perk up.
Michael's neighborhood is a half a mile from Addicks Reservoir, so I was extremely fearful. So I called him on the phone and I said, hey, why don't you start making your way up to my house?
Around 8 o'clock that evening, as the waters around his neighborhood begin to rise, Michael sets off for his mum's house and, remarkably, captures his whole journey. But the trip that normally takes him half an hour is to take a whole lot longer.
The drive up to my mom's house was intense, to say the least. Everywhere was flooded. And to make it a step worse, it was pitch black. There were a couple times where I had to jump out of the truck and kind of go through the water and really see how deep it was. I definitely can't go that way, so we'll see which way I can go. A lot of times I end up turning around because it's too risky and you don't know what's ahead of you.
I kept looking at my watch, then looking at the clock on the wall, wondering where he was.
So I've got to say, this is probably one of the dumbest things I've done, but if my house is fully flooded, then it wasn't the dumbest thing I've ever done. The freeways were a surreal empty.
It was excruciating waiting for him. The hours kept ticking by. I didn't know where he was.
I remember one moment in the trip, I get down the off-ramp and it was a river. And I was like, nope, this isn't gonna work. Turn the van around, and as I'm coming back up the wrong way, I look to my left and there's a grocery store and there's a restaurant, and it was crazy, it was a lake.
I just waited, and I just waited, and that seemed like the longest day of my life.
After 4 hours on the road, around midnight, Michael finally reaches his mum's house.
When Michael walked through that door, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness you're here.
Once I got to my mother's house, it was just a good feeling, but at that point, I could now comprehend how large this flooding was, how vast. I mean, it was everywhere. Miles and miles and miles and miles. We're all just sitting in a lake.
Michael is safe, But as the rain continues to fall and the controlled release of the reservoirs near his home is still ongoing, he has no idea if his house will survive. Haboobs are one of nature's most awesome and frightening sights. The name is derived from the Arabic word for wind and signifies a type of desert windstorm.
Haboobs can be truly terrifying. They can be about a mile thick and traveling at about 60 miles per hour, or like the speed of a car on a highway. And they can be traveling for many hundreds of miles and can be hundreds of miles long. So these things are huge walls of dust that completely envelop a city in a matter of seconds.
These storms usually form in the spring and summer and come about as major thunderstorms die away in a dry environment spinning cold, moist air onto the desert floor.
As it hits the ground, it spreads out in every direction and kicks up the amount of dust that becomes these huge, massive walls of dust that we call a haboob.
Haboobs are most common in places like the Middle East, North Africa, and the southwest of the United States of America.
Some areas are really more prone to haboobs than others because of their general climate context. So a dry, arid environment usually also has available material to be carried in that dust storm. So places like a desert, places with really dry soil, provide the material that a haboob is known for, the big, massive dust clouds.
Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. March the 20th, 2017, and as the day dawns, YouTube vlogger Lev Kalashko spots unusual weather over the city.
I'd never seen such a thing like this before. This was once in a lifetime. I grabbed my camera, ran outside, tried to film as much as possible.
Okay guys, this year Dubai's weather is not playing jokes with us. This is incredible.
I was like, whoa, what is going on? I can't believe this is happening to Dubai.
On the news they said there will be a huge storm today, and yes it is, it's here. It's a huge sandstorm.
You could see it approaching to you with a high speed. It was dark brown mixed with gray colors, and you could barely see into a distance. Huge sandstorm was approaching towards you. The storm was actually coming from the outskirts of Dubai towards the city. You could definitely smell the desert because of the sand.
The particles in these dust clouds move around in 3 different ways.
The first one is suspension. So the really smallest particles get actually physically lifted up in the air, and they're flying through the air under even some very weak winds.
Larger particles are carried by a process known as saltation.
Now, saltation comes from a Latin word for jumps or hops, and it basically means that the wind carries a piece of material for a very short distance, and then it slams back on the ground, causing other rocks and small material to then bounce up as well. Even larger materials move around by what is called creep. It's actually just sliding or rolling around. So there are 3 different ways that these sorts of materials can get entrained in this big dust storm, and it's either flying, bouncing, or rolling.
You could feel the sand like tickling on your skin because it comes with a high wind.
I don't know if you can hear me. It's really windy out here. It's really dusty, and I have like tons of sand on in my eyes right now. This is how strong the wind is.
Despite the high winds, and against what many would advise, Lev decides to take a drive through the haboob.
The most frightening moment of the day was actually me driving with my friends through the sandstorm. It's basically like a fog, but this is the way stronger version of a fog, and this was dangerous to drive a car. You could only see some hazard lights, maybe some red lights from the other cars. You could definitely see crashed cars on the side, and you could definitely feel the power of nature. I didn't feel safe at all.
Lev's ordeal ends without incident. But he's one of the lucky ones. Haboobs regularly cause collisions in the air and on the ground due to reduced visibility. They can also cause issues for people with respiratory problems.
The dust can get inside of our lungs, and anybody that has asthma can suffer major asthma attacks in the event of a haboob. So generally, if you see one of these things coming around, even if you're a healthy person, you want to get out of the way very quickly and get into a closed space.
The storm in Dubai lasted the full day.
In the evening, it was completely gone. You could see the sand on the streets. You could see the sand was inside the grocery stores, and some people were cleaning it, swiping it out, getting ready for the next day. I look back on that date as something to remember.
Tornado.
It's 2:30 in Henryville, Indiana. And at the local schools, teachers have just evacuated over 1,000 pupils due to an impending tornado.
That's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life.
Just minutes after the school buses packed with the children leave the school, 2 of them return with students still on board. The school security cameras are recording everything.
We had a couple buses that could not get their children to the locations, so they brought them back into the building.
As the students hurry in, it's a race against time before the tornado hits.
The bus driver was like, I'm gonna go ahead and go park my bus. And I'm like, well, don't worry about the bus. It'll be okay, just come on in.
As the winds begin to increase, the tension is building for around 50 people hunkering down inside offices around the schools. They have no idea about the severity of the tornado heading straight for them.
Lots of prayer out loud, some sobbing, people upset.
I was always told that when a tornado was going to hit, you could hear the train coming, but I did not hear the train.
Just after 3 o'clock, the schools suffer a direct hit from the tornado. It tears through the buildings, destroying everything in its path.
All of a sudden, the lights started flickering, and some white powder was falling out of the ceilings, and I knew something was going on. And then immediately the pressure in the building dropped. Like when you're underwater deep and your ears start clouding up, it was like that, but it was intense.
As the tornado rips the buildings apart, around 50 teachers and children are hiding out in offices inside. Will they escape one of nature's most deadly weather events unharmed? February 2018, and for the first time ever, the British Meteorological Office has issued a red alert in Scotland for snow, warning of widespread damage, disruption, and risk to life.
The Met Office warning system, the traffic light system, hasn't been going for many years, but a red alert is very, very rare. And it takes a lot to issue one, but in this case, it was the only way forward to really warn people there was a lot of danger outside.
On the M80, a blast of freezing weather named the Beast from the East is causing miles of tailbacks for hundreds of drivers who are stuck because of the snow and ice. Police Scotland are struggling to cope.
The weather did get worse. The snow got heavier and was creating really, really cold temperatures and hard working conditions for us.
By 9 p.m, there's still no movement on the motorway. Local resident Niall Hewitt sees a shout out online for 4x4 drivers and decides to lend a hand.
The policeman in charge jumped into my car.
Okay, yep.
And we headed off onto the motorway.
These people have been stuck there for hours. Yep.
It was an eerie sight to see all these vehicles stuck. All the other 4x4 drivers followed us in a convoy, looking for anybody vulnerable that would have to be taken out of there quickly, and also pushing cars to clear enough roads so that snowplows could get through.
Although the police have a plan to clear the snow, it's soon apparent nature has other ideas.
We're depending on a break in the weather so that we could use the ploughs to clear the area. But the snow did not stop. And as soon as we were clearing snow with the ploughs, it was falling again.
One of those caught up in the chaos is wedding photographer Jennifer Riddle, who's en route to a job in Wales.
Just having a look through tweets, and that's my first one there. Stuck for 2 hours on the M80 southbound, and that was at 9 o'clock at night.
Stranded in the middle of the motorway, Jennifer's starting to feel the effects.
It was just absolutely freezing. And every time I sort of got half comfortable, I was like, can you turn the car back on so I can have some heat on my feet, please? It was just horrific.
But it's not just the -10 temperatures Jennifer's struggling with.
Obviously, we'd had nothing to eat, so we were absolutely starving. And then as the night progressed, the locals came out and started offering people just what they had, like cans of juice and chocolate bars. Praise the Lord for the locals, crisps and a flake to keep me going through the night. #superstars. I ended up with a big pile of digestive biscuits and about 4 bottles of water, so at least we had enough to sort of tide us over. Everyone was tweeting me saying, oh, nice digestive biscuits. So I've tweeted saying #biscuitlady, #M80.
As the snow keeps on falling, freezing temperatures see hundreds of road users stranded overnight. Jennifer's chances of making it to the wedding are dropping by the minute.
2:30 in the morning. Please, not more snow. Officially done in.
Texas, August 2017. Hurricane Harvey has hovered over Houston for 4 days, dropping historic levels of rain, and subsequently forcing the city to release its flood control reservoirs.
Thanks.
A day after escaping his flood-threatened home, cameraman Michael Melendez returns to his neighborhood and films the whole thing.
So that's everybody evacuating flood areas, trying to get out. That morning when I pulled in, I instantly realized that our neighborhood was in a bad place.
The flooding is so bad, Michael has to park 8 blocks away from his house and walk the rest of the way in.
When I got out of the car and started walking, you were hit with an eerie silence. It's like surreal. Like right now, it's just kind of a dream. How you doing?
Flooded.
Yeah. I've only been treading in this water for maybe 3 blocks, and my legs hurt. I'm a pretty thick guy, and treading through that water was hard. See how deep this is? The only thing you could hear, because it was just the day after, is you could hear the car's horns going off, because the car batteries weren't dead yet. It was weird because it's like, just yesterday, people lived here. This is my street.
After wading through the water for half a mile, an hour and a half later, Michael reaches his destination.
That's my house. My front door is underwater. At that point, I just knew that this was gonna suck for the next year. I'm gonna be living in a world of suck. This is a life-changing thing. Everything you've built up to that point and all the things that you've collected and all the memories and photos that you have are now washed away. This is why you shouldn't print your memories on an inkjet printer. Look at this. Look, I'm wiping my memories away. It makes you sad and you want to cry. I know it sounds corny, but my refrigerator magnet collection is pretty important to me because it's all the places I've been throughout my life. So I saved all of my magnets. They would have all been ruined. I've got all my magnets up in there. That was kind of stupid, but it meant a lot to me.
3 feet of water has engulfed Michael's home, leaving a devastating effect on him.
Just heartbreak. Just felt like crushing weight on my shoulder. And how in the world am I gonna pick myself up from this? I mean, ultimately looking around, there's really nothing I can do with this. When I was leaving, I saw the head of an alligator in my neighbor's yard. So I'm pretty sure I just saw that alligator. And so I quickly tried to grab the camera and I, pointed in that direction. By that point, you couldn't really see him. He was kind of off in some bushes, but that was the scariest moment for me. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I got a lot of things I gotta think about and I gotta get off this. When I was walking back to the car, I knew that this is gonna take a long time to fix. This has the potential of ruining your outlook on life. It could be that overwhelming.
With no sign of the water receding in the neighborhood, Michael has little choice but to return to his mum's house.
Search and rescue!
His home is one of over 100,000 single-family homes destroyed in Houston alone. It will take a long time for the residents of Texas's most populated city to rebuild. But before that can happen, a huge clear-up operation lies ahead of Michael. March the 1st, 2018 on the M80, and Police Scotland have been working through the night to clear the snow and traffic.
The people in the motorway hadn't moved. They'd been there all night. Some were still sleeping in their cars. Some people were out wandering, stretching their legs, and pretty much the situation was grim.
I think we've probably had maybe 2-3 hours sleep, and that's broken sleep. We've got our little dog Pig with us. She's been really well behaved considering how long she's been stuck in the car.
Finally, the sun begins to break through.
By mid-morning, the weather gave us a break and we were able to get in, get it ploughed and gritted and get vehicles moving.
After 19 hours on the motorway, Jennifer is on the move.
And we're off. Shout out to everyone who did their bit to get us up and running. I've literally never been so happy in my whole entire life. It was just a huge relief to be able to text my bride to tell her I'm on the way.
The cold spell, nicknamed the Beast from the East, lasts for 6 days and is thought to have cost Britain's economy £1 billion a day. Despite these chaotic conditions, Jennifer and her partner do eventually make it to Swansea at 3 o'clock on Friday morning.
A journey that should have taken us between 10 and 12 hours took us over 30 hours to do. I managed to get to the wedding on time. The bride was absolutely ecstatic. The photos were absolutely beautiful. There's a big lake in the venue and it had frozen over and it was just absolutely stunning. I think they actually ended up really lucky that they got snowy wedding photos.
It's just after 3 o'clock in Henryville, Indiana, and a tornado is tearing its way through a local school complex where several teachers and students are hiding out.
Once the tornado hit, it was like lots and lots of explosions. It was a frightening, it was a scary, it was a most unusual event that I've ever experienced. You can watch brick walls just wave like a flag. And then the power of wind was amazing to me. I don't know that any of us thought that it was going to be a survivable event.
After around a minute, one of the most powerful and destructive tornadoes to ever hit Henryville has disappeared.
When it stopped, of course, the power was all gone, and then when we were out of the shaking and out of the vacuum of what the tornado did, everyone was covered with white dust. Several of the children had blood streaming from their noses. Because of the vacuum of the tornado, it caused their noses to hemorrhage.
The tornado decimates the Henryville school complex. Incredibly, everyone in the complex survives. Shortly after the tornadoes passed, the survivors flee the buildings, but they are shocked by the devastation around them.
It was surreal. It felt like it was not a real place. It felt like it was someplace I'd never been in or I'd seen in a movie. The immediate buildings around us didn't exist anymore. The roofs were gone and so on. We were walking in the areas where our cars used to be, and all of our vehicles and so on were flipped over and stacked on top of each other.
The amount of destruction put me in awe of what nature can do.
And it literally looked like bombs had been dropped on Henryville.
While the schools face a total rebuild, all the teachers and students are lucky to have escaped alive.
This was probably the best coordinated event between the National Weather Service and TV meteorologists for such a serious situation that I'd ever been involved with.
Despite these coordinated weather warnings, the tornadoes of March 2nd, 2012 do claim a number of lives.
About 40 people died that day. But when I think of what might have happened had the system not worked as well as it did, I think we could have had 100 fatalities.
Across Texas, 35,000 people have been forced to flee their homes to temporary shelters due to the impact of Hurricane Harvey. One of those affected is Michael Melendez, whose home has been flooded. 10 days after the event, he and his mum, Debbie, are returning to the area.
Driving through Michael's neighborhood looked like a war zone. I'd never seen anything like that before in my life.
The piles of people's belongings were slowly starting to collect out on the curb. Everything was water damaged and destroyed.
That's what it is throughout this entire neighborhood.
It was sad and it was heartbreaking. As we pulled up to Michael's house, I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect to see. And walking through the front door, well, of course, the first thing you notice is the smell.
We're gonna have to air that out.
The smells were intense. The smells were no joke. It was like rotting eggs with a side of poop. It was so disgusting.
Then you see all of the furniture that you used to sit on and the TV you used to watch and the videos you used to view, and everything's gone.
All my home videos got hit pretty good, and that stinks. These were all, like, stuff with my dad and when I was little.
It was sad clearing everything out. It was a long job. It was a hard job.
Thanks,
Mom. Oh, you're welcome.
Michael moved back into his house in April 2018, 8 months after it had been destroyed by the flooding. Hurricane Harvey left at least $125 billion worth of damage in its wake. As well as being the second most costly hurricane in US history behind Hurricane Katrina, Harvey was also the deadliest to hit Texas in nearly a century, with over 100 people losing their lives to it.
Water's strong and it don't care about nobody. Nature's a beast, and it will come at you any way and every way it can. And there's nothing you can do about it because you are this big to it. You're nothing.